Welcome to Preps Insider. It's week 3 of the high school football season, and I am joined by the Kane County Chronicle sports editor, Jay Schwab, and Kane County Chronicle sports reporter, Kevin Drewley. Well, a lot of exciting games in week 2 of the high school football season, and Kevin, St. Charles North really put on a fireworks display. Top 20 scoring output in IHSA history with their game against McHenry. Why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, very much. A lot of points there, 62-49, North's way. All the talk was about the defense coming into the year and rebuilding that, and certainly you allow 49 points and you don't feel great, but you do score 62, so you can go off of that. Really, the quarterback to receiver duo of Matt Schultz to Josh Mikas really was working. Mikas had 6 catches for over 200 yards. Quarterback only had 5 incompletions or thereabouts. So it was just really pretty much throw it, catch it, and keep running. I know Mikas's 3 of his touchdowns were over 40 yards, and they really wanted to get him going this year and get him as a weapon. Last year he missed a fair amount of time with back issues, and he was there for the basketball season, but he's definitely a multi-sport threat, and they wanted him to get more of a football pedigree going on this fall. So he's been doing that, and I know they felt good about what they have with Schultz. I know he's starting to kind of click. Jake Bergen, we know about him from last year. Broke 2 of his fingers in the off season with summer baseball, but Mark Gould said really that those 2 guys were going to be a competition anyhow. Leading up to the kickoff of the season. So saw definitely what he's talking about there. I know they want to get the defense under 49, under 21 would probably be preferable too, but certainly to get that win and to get going forward heading into Upstate 8 conference play with a crossover coming up with Nico Valley. But yeah, they do feel good about that one.
Yeah, certainly an offense that's finally showing off its potential. And Jay, I wanted to talk to you about Geneva. They made a step in the right direction against Morgan Park. Wasn't much difference between the 2 teams, but still a defeat for Geneva, and now in an uncharacteristic position, 0-2.
Yeah, not necessarily surprised that Geneva lost that game, but just we're so used to the Vikings winning at a steady clip, them being 0-2 for the first time in about a decade. And even though they were competitive in both games, they weren't really in a position to win in the closing minutes, either of those games against Rock Island or Morgan Park. So, Coach Rob Wasinski told us after the game that he's not quite sure if the guys really truly believe the way that he'd like them to yet. And just watching the game, that Geneva has some decent pieces, but the 84-yard touchdown pass, the allowing Morgan Park to recover the onside kick, those are the kind of mistakes you're not used to seeing. But if, occasionally a play like that will happen in a game. What kind of threw me was Morgan Park, each of their 3 2-point conversion attempts, each of their first 3, they ran it in just with a couple of the times. Really, it was a lot easier than you're expecting to see from a Geneva defense, the way that they were able to convert those 2-point plays. Geneva has Connor Quinn's been terrific on the bright side at running back. You'd like to see in the fourth quarter of a game, if you're Geneva, you'd like to see if defenses can stop a guy like that who's that big and strong late in the game when defenses are tired, but they haven't been in a position to run the ball down the stretch because they don't have the lead. They've had to throw a lot late, and that's something that obviously is going to need to change for the Vikings to bail themselves out of this difficult start.
Well, another 0-2 team in the area besides Geneva is St. Charles East. They lost a tough one to Naperville North. Now, the final score, 17-0, could swing one of 2 ways. Was it a case of St. Charles East simply being outclassed by Naperville North, or did they put up a fight and have a chance to win that ball game?
They put up quite a bit of a fight, Jim. It was scoreless at halftime, and the story certainly was East defense, which really carried them last year and was kind of their backbone, their identity last year too. Really stepped up. Coach Trzynski, the defensive coordinator, really schemed against Naperville North's quarterback, Matt Lacoste, who's going to be headed to Minnesota. They just were really making sure that he didn't have much room to run. He ran for about 230, 240 yards in week 1, but they were really plugging up the run game, allowing minimal stuff, passing. Naperville North did commit quite a few penalties, but by no means was that the sole reason. It was really East and the pressure they were getting. I mean, they allowed 56 points in week 1, and they cut that down to 17, and like I said, all those were after halftime. East felt like it had a fair amount of its mojo going. I mean, I mentioned it was scoreless at half. Well, East had 2 false start penalties to open the half, so kind of started to go in the wrong direction to begin the half. they feel good about the defense they've got. They're replacing a lot of guys, but they know offensively too that they got to get it going against Geneva. Jay mentioned earlier Geneva was 0-2 about a decade ago. Well, East was 0-2, last year, and then they ran the table in the Upstate 8. So they're searching for a new identity. That's really the theme that Coach Fields is talking about. This isn't last year's team, but I'm sure they wouldn't mind if they, like last year's team, won the last 7 in the conference, won the conference.
Yeah, certainly a big step in the right direction despite the loss. And Jay, Kane just keeps on rolling. They've just rolled through the conference season, kind of a in-between game in week 1, but a different story in week 2.
Yeah, Kane was terrific against Huntley second week, and defensively in particular, I think is what probably Coach Federley and the rest of the Knights staff really took out of that Huntley performance. You know that they're going to score points. We've talked it to death just with the firepower that they have. They're going to be in the 30s, 40s probably against most opponents, but to hold Huntley to under a couple touchdowns, that's the kind of evidence that defense needs to keep building if Kane has a chance to win the conference. So certainly a much sharper performance defensively from Kane, and we'll see what they do against some of the physical running teams that they'll see. I know Huntley is a little bit more of a wide open offense, so I guess that'll be the next challenge for Kane's defense, is to see how they perform against maybe a team like Sycamore, or a team that really runs with some attitude. So that'll be interesting.
Yeah, a couple 2-0 teams in that conference that Kane's going to have to beat, but that's still further down the line. And Kevin, we talked about Batavia, that game against West Chicago as being a barometer game for them, and their barometer, they're on the rise now with a victory, a touchdown win, a close game, but they were able to pull it out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they know they have the defense to play those kinds of games. They showed that in the opener against Marmion. I know they want to keep beefing it up and be more versatile and more balanced on offense. And you're seeing that with the passing game a lot. I know I was looking over the stats today that the coach sent over, and Noel Gaspari's already got about 430, 440 yards passing, and that was almost what he had at the quarter pole or midway pole last year. So
wow.
He's really kind of pulled it together. He's got some big weapons and some fast weapons that he's working with. But yeah, like you said, a barometer game, and starting conference play this week with Larkin at home. So they're excited about that. I know they all thought it was wide open with the Tri-City teams coming in, but they weren't too sure what the Elgin teams had in store. So they're looking forward to that, I know.
Well, they're certainly going to find out very soon. Well, that's about it for the Preps Insider. As we recapped week 2, I want to thank Jay and Kevin for stopping by the BATV studios. Once again, I'm Jim Leo, and we'll see you again next week.